Hey everyone, welcome back. It is your co-host Mary Nunley and my fabulous partner in adventure, Sharon Otaguro.
Yes,
To-
welcome everyone.
Today we are coming at you. Well, when you see this, it'll be recorded, but we're doing this live on a Saturday morning because we just felt like it. Anyway, hopefully you're watching this on your regularly scheduled day. Today, as part of the Sister Street adventure, we're going to continue on talking about your toolbox. And we're still focusing on tools to help you with your why identity. And the last episodes, we focused on vision boards and how those are important. Today, we're going to look at personality typing, different personality typings, the pros, the cons, some of the ones that are out there, how it'll benefit you, how it could be a danger zone. So, Sharon, why don't you start us off?
Absolutely. Thanks, Mary. Welcome back, everyone. And who here has taken one of those personality tests? And Mary and I are thinking about the Myers-Briggs tests, the Strengths Finder tests, the Colby, the Print, the Enneagram, the Human Design, all of the different types of personality tests. We are not talking about as much those Cosmos tests of who's your best date partner, etc. But you never know. Put in the chat, if you would, that which tests you've taken and if you've taken any. I think we're going to get a resounding percentage of us saying, yes, I took one of those tests. So the next question is, what did that test do for you? And specifically to our identity, how does that affect our success at work? It's a great tool for some, but if not used properly, it can distract us from how clear we are and how effective we are in what we're doing. Right, Mary?
Exactly. I've seen a lot of folks, myself included at times, use it as a crutch to say, oh, well, I can't do that because I'm fill in the blank, depending on the test of choice, instead of, oh, that's interesting, but I need to flex or I need to change. And I've seen it tear teams apart. And I've also seen it really help build teams and improve communication. So, Sharon, I know you've got a fun little tool that you've created for yourself. Why
Yeah,
don't you tell us a little bit more, though, about some of the benefits to these various types of personality tests or assessments?
absolutely. Mary's asking me because I am addicted to these tests. I love them and I have taken many of them. And yes, in my business, I utilize that tool in how I learn about prospective employees, how I train with people and teams, and for myself, that addiction again, to know more about who I am. So it's a great tool for personal development, self awareness, team awareness, and there are different facets of the different ones. So the tool that Mary mentioned, I have a little block, and this was from the Clifton Strengths Finder. And basically, the Strengths Finder lists your top strengths. You can see your top 5, and then you can go extended, and I think it's like 15 or 21, but you see your strengths. And the positioning of the Cliffs Finder is that we should work from our strengths, not our weaknesses, so that we are most effective. And how do we apply the pieces that we are most effective at? And then how do we take the aspects that are less effective and understand how to switch any challenge by using our top strengths? And so my top strength is achiever, number 1. My second top strength is an activator. And so we write all the top 5, and then the other one is just a little fun when I made it
Aha, I like it.
so that you can put this on your desk and remind yourself to work from your strengths. That's the Strengths Finder test. Myers-Briggs is another one that's going to tell you about your outward personality. How do you show up in the world? Is it extroverted, introverted? And I know Mary's got a lot to share with us on the good and bad of knowing that piece of yourself. Print is going to be more on how do you react under, Colby is about how to react under pressure. Print is about, once again, your strengths, but also your wings or your shadow side, what can come up on the other side of that strength and what you need to watch out for when put under stress. Then there's fun ones like Enneagram, Human Design, There are so many. And my favorite, actually not my favorite, I love them all, but the one that I also lead with is DISC, which is going to be your communication style versus just your personality. So Mary, tell us a little bit more on, once we pick a test and we see how we can put them into tools, what might be the result, and what is that possible spectrum of results that we might kind of move forward with?
Sharon, great question. And many of these tests are based on some level on the Myers-Briggs, which is sort of the grandparent of all of these tests. There's also gamer personality types. So for those of you that are into the gaming world, you can see your gaming personality type. I think I'm chaotic neutral, but you know, it's a thing. Anyway, with these tests, one of the things that can be very helpful for folks is like, oh, that explains why I've reacted in certain situations, or that shows me a little bit more like why my assistant, my team member, my partner reacted a certain way. But the thing that a lot of folks get stuck on is that you're locked into this then. So it's like, okay, my Myers-Briggs is INTP. So that must mean that I can never do anything else. And no, that doesn't mean that. It just means that when you have when you have the opportunity, your preferred method of relating to the world, relating with data, relating with ideas is this particular way. In business, I'm forced to go, well, in my mind, forced to go to, maybe big parties. I worked in the hospitality industry as Sharon did. I was a banquet manager for a long time. Well, guess what? That means that 12, 15 hours a day, I'm dealing with lots of people, lots of information flowing. And as an introvert, that just meant that when I got home, I needed some quiet time. It didn't mean that I stood in a corner by myself all the time. And so looking at that, and I think a lot of times people think, and again, introversion, extroversion is a big topic. Introversion doesn't mean that you're a shy, retiring wallflower. What it means is you need alone time, quiet time to recharge. You can have a shy extrovert, but that extrovert needs to be around people to recharge their battery. So it's just like your phone. Some people have a wireless charger and you can just place the phone on the thing. Other people have to use a cord to charge their phone. Neither one is right or wrong. It's just the method of charging your phone. So in the workplace, though, what happens is that we often assume that everyone likes to communicate the same way we do. And so we will give information to people in the same manner that we wish to receive it. And that's where you get into some problems. So, where these type indicators and personality tests really I have found be helpful is, oh, okay. So I prefer my information in short little bullet points, and I'm not going to read past the first paragraph unless it grabs my attention. That doesn't mean that that's how Sharon likes to receive information. And just before this recording, we were talking about an email for a summit that she's producing for myself and my colleague, Rebecca. And I was sharing with Sharon that the email template to me was just very long. It was sort of meandering and wasn't the way I would present the information. And Sharon's like, well, that's the way I would do it too. She goes, but my partner, Shabade, would do it more like you. So mine was just like, just the facts. Hey, it's Mary. I'm doing a thing. Do you want to be part of my thing? And
Right.
then if you're interested, but that's my high D from DISC. That's my, you know, whatever from Myers-Briggs. Whereas other people want all the details in one. Like, well, when is it? What is it going to be? What's my commitment? And to me, it's like, I don't care about that right now. I just want to know if I'm interested in doing the thing. And so that's where you can get into trouble in the workplace because in my head, it's like, well, yeah, nobody wants to know all the details. And the detail people are like, well, I can't even make a commitment because I don't know all the details. So Sharon, let's tie it together for me because I'm just kind of rambling here.
It's a great expansiveness of the concepts. And I loved, Mary, your example of plugging into the wall or having a wireless charger. So perfect explanation for introvert versus extrovert. And guys, when you're thinking of these tools, it's it's that great concept of try to take it as a tool versus a transformation. A lot of
Yes.
people that we see consider an answer that's given as if it just transformed you, right? And to use our toolbox analogy, if you took a test and it said, oh, you like to hammer things and get things done, then for one type of person, they would say, oh my God, I just transformed into a hammer. Well, if you feel like you transformed into a hammer, then everything looks like a nail, right?
Yes.
Versus if all of a sudden you discover that you now have a hammer in your toolbox, then you can utilize that top personality style, or that pattern that emerges, that you like getting things done, and use it as a tool in your toolbox. Um, and
And
that's
Sharon, I'm just laughing because for me, for years, my hammer was the heel of a high-heeled shoe and my screwdriver was a butter knife. So it's like, use what's in your toolbox. Instead, it's like, no, I don't need to go to the store to buy a hammer. I got a shoe. Boom, boom, boom. Not necessarily the best tool, but I just wanted to throw that in there because that's the thing. It's just like, these are tools.
Yep.
And while you might not have the perfect tool available, use the tools that are available to you in the situation.
I love reading and I don't need a fly swatter.
Oh, that's right.
That's so funny. So yeah, and this is the thing, right? So these tests were developed by business psychologists, and what they do is they study patterns. So when you get a result, what that means is this is your natural pattern or your instinctual pattern under stress or certain things like that. And so what a psychologist does is says, okay, what is the pattern of behavior or thought, and how does that translate to behavior or action in a normal setting, combining concentration of people, and what might we be able to expect. So it's predictive behavior that they're doing. That doesn't mean that you are not an individual person with individual situations, and how do you adapt. So Mary, I think that's a sum of what it is. How do you think we can use this positively? I know you've given us some examples, but what are some ways that you've seen in work that have made it more effective for a leader to communicate or a team member to be self-aware? You gave the introvert example. How else can people utilize it?
Sure. So I've worked at several companies where the leadership has decided my team is so dysfunctional. We're going to take everyone through one of these processes. And then at our desks or on our door or whatever, wherever our workstations were, we actually had our type written with some little things like Mary prefers, bullet pointed conversation, da 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 da, so that when you go in to have a meeting or have a crucial conversation or resolve an issue, it doesn't mean that this is the be all and end all. And certainly as a good employee, as a good entrepreneur, as a good manager, I need to flex, but it helps because I can stand outside the door, stand next to that cubicle and go, oh, okay, Sharon prefers to receive her information in this way. I'm not being untrue to myself if I change my method of delivery. And so that's where I found it really powerful in the workplace. It's you're not being untrue to yourself. And some people have said, well, this is who I am and I can't change and I'm not true to myself if I do. It's like, no, no, no. It's just like if you go to McDonald's and you order a hamburger with no onions because you're allergic to onions. The employee is not being disloyal to McDonald's. They're just providing you what you asked for in the way that you asked for it. And so if you think about it that way, the other thing just to quickly add is that you may have a different personality type or style at work and then not at work. Because many times, especially as entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs or employees, we have to mold ourselves to the job or the role. And some of us, it then becomes our main personality. But then for other people, it's like, okay, that's work, Mary. This is home, Mary. And that's okay too. You're not like split personality. It's just you're living up to the requirements of your job versus who you really are.
Love it. Yes, so true. And that's a great place to come from, Mary, that it's part of a reminder, because let's face it, our brains are lazy pieces of meat. What that means is your brain tries to filter information as quickly as possible because it has so much stimulus coming in at all given times. And so to have those reminders of, oh, this person likes to communicate in this way, or has relationship as their primary value, then instead of coming in and say, hey, Mary, I need you to do that report, etc., I can come in and say, Mary, how are you doing today? How's your family? It takes literally 30 seconds more, depending on the person. Sometimes it takes, 5 minutes, but that's on their mind regardless. And if I don't start with their highest value, then I won't be able to get and achieve my result, my desired result, because they're not going to turn on to the conversation. They're going to be distracted by the fact that we're not aligned in communication and values or whatnot, subconsciously or consciously. So help them filter to get in sync with you by knowing who they are, what some of their patterns are, so that you can get in sync and then move
Mhm.
forward together.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't mean that you're not being true to yourself. It's you're helping move the project, move the process, move whatever forward. And I stumble with this all the time at home because Ken is like very much that relationship first, the be gentle, be kind, and I'm very much the like in your face, here's what I need, do it now, blah blah blah. And we butt heads frequently because I just have the hardest time delivering information the way that works best for him.
Yeah.
Because I just like, I just need you to go to the grocery store and buy a bag of potatoes. And his request is like, well, it would be really better if you said, well, Ken, I know that you're just watching the game, but if you want to have dinner tonight, I'd really like you to go to the store to buy a bag of potatoes so that I could make mashed potatoes. And I'm just like, but why am I wasting all this time? I just need you to go to the store and buy potatoes.
Right. And so this the perfect example, because this is where some would say, okay, great. Like I would say, great. I get up, I go to the store, I'm buying potatoes, and then I don't even know how many Mary needs, what type of potatoes she wants, what she's going to use it for. So I'm just going to go and I'm going to buy potato chips. I'm going to buy those little baby potatoes for the salad, because I was thinking about salad. And so having an understanding and blending the styles is not untrue to yourself, and absolutely a tool to utilize in your toolbox. So we're about 2/3 of the way through the session, but drop in the comments what other examples you have where a tool has met with success in yourself or your team, or where it fell short because there wasn't, it was typecasting instead of tool utilization.
Oh,
So
I love that typecasting, that tool utilization. Brilliant.
so as people are commenting, Mary, what else about these personality types and tools will help the identities of our entrepreneurs and our sisters move forward?
Oh, great question. So I think the other piece of it is, again, knowing that it will shift, it can shift. There are certain things that seem to be through our core that we were born with. Like if my parents were still alive, they would say that she's always been a rebel, she's always been a reader, she's always been. So that's true to my personality, but other things have changed. And so I've had to adapt and change the toolkit. So just like I mentioned earlier, I used to just use a high heel and a butter knife instead of a hammer and a screwdriver. As I got older, as I started making more money, as I, had more responsibilities, it's like, oh, I bet I could get this job done more quickly, more efficiently, with less damage if I actually had the proper tool. So when you look at these personality tests, look at it from that lens too. It's like, oh, these are tools to help me better achieve my goals rather than I always have to use a high heel and a butter knife. Now, if I can't find my hammer, I will still find a pair of shoes because I always know where they are. But if available, I will go to the toolbox and get the right tool for the situation.
Yeah. And I think you all know by now, Mary is not a, 6-inch stiletto heel wearer. So that high-heeled shoe has a pretty solid base and foundation to get the job done.
Yes, most likely it's a pair of boots.
Um, so when is a tool good? I think one of the ways that I've used these personality types and communication tools is when I need greater clarity. Mary gave a great example earlier of when a team is feeling dysfunctional, this is a perfect time to find one of these tools. And we would recommend that you also find a facilitator that is an expert in that specific tool, because the nuances of the tools, if they've been studied, oftentimes are pretty in depth and pretty interesting. One of the examples, our colleague is Alex Onderud, and he focuses on the DISC program. But what he says, where most other people don't, is that it's a lever. And that's why I like how he utilizes it. It's not that you have 4 types and you're one of the 4, so you're type A blood or type B blood, but that all of us have universal blood donorship of these 4 types, and how high your level is on any given letter dictates how you're going to react in specific types of situation, time-based, complexity-based, those types of things. So he's not the only one, and he may or may not be right, but he is the one that I personally enjoy on that tool. So when you need clarity, that's a good time for tool. And then within that, finding an expert facilitator for a team can be helpful in seeing the nuances, and then also working through practical problems with the team on how to work through, let's say, brainstorming, how to work through problem solving, those types of scenarios. Mary, what other types of times would bringing in a tool help?
So thinking about that too, it's again being flexible and not saying, okay, this is who I am and I can never do anything like that. So again, if a group is dysfunctional, or if you're putting together a new team, prior to us starting the recording today, I was talking to Sharon and I said, one of the things that I really miss about somebody who was on my team and retired is that she brought that like consistent stability type to the team, whereas I'm much more big picture, in the clouds, the visionary, what you associate often with many entrepreneurs. It's like, let's go after that next new idea. Let's go after that next new thing. And she was the one that's going, okay, how are we going to do it? How much is it going to cost? When are we going to do it by? What's the parameters? Da, 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 da. And so these tools can also be used to help you as you build a team to find somebody that complements your areas of limitation, instead of, and this is a mistake I made very early on in my career. I hired teams of everybody that was just like me. And it was great because for the most part, we all got along really, really well. And on certain tasks, we excelled. But there are a lot of times when we drop the ball because we didn't have that other voice or that other type saying, have you thought about this? Has anybody put any effort into this? What about this? And so that's another situation in the workplace where knowing the different types on the team can help you fill those gaps. So you're not just hiring for a skill set, you're also looking for personality type to bridge some of those gaps.
Love it. Yeah, and you highlighted too that there are going to be different times when you need a tool, whether it's during the hiring process, whether it's to mentor someone, when there's team dysfunction, things like that. The underlying factor typically of these types of tools is that you have a people problem, right? The people problem might be myself. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing in life. Well, those are some of the earliest personality tests. There are some professions that match the style of work that you want, environment that you want, etc. And then there's going to be times where you need communication, times where you need problem solving. And there are tests that will show, well, you have a whole bunch of ideation creators and you don't have any implementers.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing which tool is meant for which purpose is also important, so that not only are you just trying to put yourself into a corner and think one way or black versus white, but you're also saying, okay, well, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? And is it even the right tool? Is it a hammer or is it a screwdriver that you're utilizing for the result that you're looking for?
And one last kind of words of wisdom on that is a lot of companies now use these personality tests in part as part of the hiring process. I would recommend don't use that as the deciding factor. It's just one aspect. And again, true story in my own life, I had done contract work for a client. They asked me to apply to be a full timer on their team. I wasn't really ready. I mean, I'm not ready to leave my entrepreneurial business, but I'm like, you know what? It never hurts. Let's explore it. And they had one of those kind of personality tests. And the person that I'd been working with for several months said, "Oh, you never would have made it past the screeners based on the answers to your personality test." She goes, "But because we've worked with you for the last several months, we know that." And so there are people that know how to play the system. So there are folks that are just like, okay, I've done this. Do I really want the job? Am I interested? So they may put different answers just because they want to see what happens, or they it's not a full snapshot. So I guess it's just that word of warning is, again, it's just a tool. And don't make all your decisions just based on like, oh, well, Mary's an INTP. Surely she can't be on the team because she's never going to be able to, go out to parties. Well, no, have a conversation, get to know me, see what my strengths are, see how I fit with your team, and then use that as a kind of way to have that conversation.
Love it. So we've talked a lot, guys, on how we utilize these tools from an internal perspective in our businesses, understanding ourselves, understanding our team more, creating strategy. But this tool type of process, we started to then infer can also be used for external. So Mary said in the hiring process, some recruiters will look at the tools to say, okay, well, who is the best fit, right? You can also use this not just in filtering for the right customers, which guess what? Some of those fun little quizzes that you see in Cosmo magazine, I don't know if Cosmo's still out there.
Yeah,
Um,
Cosmos out there, BuzzFeed.
but those actually help to filter the audience for those news, for those
Mhm.
messages, because it's saying this is the type of people that we like. This is the type of stores that you should buy from. Um, and then there are other external ways. So I'm going to share one, and then I'm going to invite Mary to share others as well. One of the ways that people have used these communication styles like DISC, which is DISC, is to be a driver forward, to be an influencer, to be a social person, or to be a correctness type of person, or detail driven person in their sales copy. So they will have a script that highlights the different aspects. What does that do for the person that likes bullet points? In that email or that sales copy, the bullet points are going to come first. And then right after is going to have the high I, which is the fun influencer type of style. They're going to have maybe celebrities that also like that brand or things like that, but something to inspire and motivate. Then they're going to have the feel good. And how does this help with the community, and how does everything interweave into the sustainable aspects of something? And then the last piece, because we know that those detail oriented people are going to read to the very end, though, that's where all the different, liability and detail and all the other follow-up stuff is. But by organizing your content so that you're communicating to any type of test or style, then helps that effectiveness, because not only are you addressing all different types, and so they each get a little bit of what helps them understand the brand, but you're doing it in the organization that helps them to get the information versus miss it. Mary, what other examples of external types of uses might some of these tests have?
Oh, so some other examples like you'd mentioned with marketing. So, if you're writing marketing copy, when you think about demographics, that might be another demographic that you look at. Same thing with your social media posts. If you do daily social media posting, you may want to take that same topic, but on one day of the week, you apply to this personality type. On the next day, it's this. And so we'll continue with the disc thread, or for some of you that are being direct sales, true colors, which is very similar. So on Mondays, I'm directing my comments to the D's. On Tuesdays, I'm directing it to the C's. I'm going off a little bit, but there's a reason to this. On Wednesdays, it's for everyone. On Thursdays, it's the S's, and on Fridays, because those are my fun-loving party people, my Friday posts are targeting those I's, because most of us think of, oh, it's the weekend, time to have fun. Those that are D's are like, got to get to work, crack the whip, got to meet these things. So my Monday post targets them because they're in work mode. So that's another external way that you can apply this is use it for your social media posts too.
So brilliant. All right, guys, so we are wrapping up. I hope that you've gotten some takeaways, and we really want you to utilize these tools in your toolbox, knowing where they're good, knowing where there's challenges, and knowing where and when it might apply best. So please drop your comments in the chat of how this has helped you, what your biggest takeaways have been. And Mary, let's recap in the last minute or two all the pieces of when and how and what this tool might be for.
Ooh, lots of things to recap. So we'll also include a list of some of our sites that you can go and take free versions of these tests. Different personality styles or types can be used to identify more of your identity. They can also be used to help with team building. You can also use them as part of your hiring process. Some limitations to these, though, are making sure that you don't get stuck in like, well, this is my type and I can't do anything else. Being able to flex and know that this is my preferred method of dealing with things, but that doesn't mean it's the only method, or sometimes I need to change based on the situation. So, again, going back to my using the high heel versus using a hammer. If the only thing that you have available is a hammer, use a hammer. But sometimes you need a different tool. And then, last but not least, have fun with it and see how true it is, just like the Cosmo test that Sharon was referring to. Sometimes you look at it and go, "What the no, that's not me at all," and that's okay. It is about the nuances. So finally is, if you really wanna dive into this, finding somebody that is an experienced facilitator that can help you digest, distract, apply can be really beneficial. And that's all I have to say about that.
And that's all I think you guys need for this session. I hope this has been valuable. Mary has shared so much wisdom, and we on the Sister Street Show are committed to your success. So let us know how we can facilitate, support, and share. We'll also put a little bit of our personalities in the show notes so that you'll see a little bit more about us and
Yes.
confirm whether that's in alignment for the future of our journey together.
Thanks, everyone. And again, visit us on Facebook, Sister Street Show, or go to Sister Street Show, sisterstreet.show. Bye, everyone.
Aloha.